Welcome to Fragile Bonds, to powerful stories of family, love, loss, and the choices that shape our lives. Now let's begin today's story.
In a suburban house where soft spring sunlight streamed through the windows, Allison Williams was rushing through her morning routine. Allison worked as a project manager at an IT company and had meetings scheduled early that morning. As she brewed coffee in the kitchen, she glanced at the clock. It was already 7:30. "Hannah, are you up? You're going to be late for school." When Allison called out, she heard little footsteps from upstairs. Her 8-year-old daughter Hannah was coming down the stairs. Hannah was a girl with a bright smile and big, striking eyes. She had many friends and always talked cheerfully about school. "Good morning, Mom." Hannah sat down at the dining table in her uniform with her backpack on. As Allison prepared breakfast for her daughter, she mentally organized the day's schedule. 2 important meetings in the morning, a client meeting in the afternoon, and then a major project progress report in the evening. She'd be home late again. "Hannah, I'm sorry. I'm going to be late again today," Allison said apologetically to her daughter. Lately, she felt like she'd been repeating these words over and over. But the large project she'd been entrusted with at the company was important. This was the crucial moment. "It's okay, Mom," Hannah answered with a smile. It was a steady response. As Allison looked at her daughter, her chest ached a little. Was it really okay to make an 8-year-old child endure so much? But Hannah understood. She was a good girl. That's what she told herself. Her husband Tom was away on a business trip this week. Tom was a talented architect handling several major projects, which meant he was often away from home. On the surface, they were a happy family. They lived in a nice suburban house, each had fulfilling careers, and they had an adorable daughter. They were the kind of family anyone would envy. When Allison arrived at the office, she immediately went into a meeting. The new system development project was reaching a critical phase, and her decisions moved millions of dollars. Team members were waiting for her instructions. Allison focused on her work. She found this job rewarding. She had pride in being recognized for her abilities and being entrusted with an important position. That evening, Allison arrived home exhausted just after 9 o'clock. When she opened the front door, only the living room light was on in the quiet house. A faint glow leaked from her daughter's room upstairs. "Hannah, did you eat dinner?" As she climbed the stairs, Allison called out toward her daughter's room. When she opened the door, Hannah was doing homework at her desk. "Yeah, I ate." Hannah turned around and smiled. But to Allison, that smile seemed a little tired. Was it just her imagination? Lately, she'd been feeling like her daughter didn't have as much energy as before. But she was only 8 years old, of course she'd get tired at school sometimes. Thinking this, Allison didn't dwell on it. "Good girl. Now go to bed. You have school tomorrow, right?" "Okay. Good night, Mom." Allison gently stroked her daughter's head and left the room. After taking a shower and returning to her own room, she collapsed onto the bed. Her whole body was heavy with fatigue. Tomorrow would be early too. The day after that, and the day after that. Until this project was finished, this busyness would continue. The next morning, as Allison was brewing coffee in the kitchen, Hannah came downstairs earlier than usual. It wasn't even 7 o'clock yet. "Hannah, you're early again today." "I'm going to school with my friend." Hannah said this and quickly began eating breakfast. Lately, her daughter had been leaving the house early in the morning. Apparently she was meeting up with friends. "I see. Have a good day. Be careful." "I'm going." Hannah left through the front door with a smile. Allison watched her daughter's small back from the window. On a weekend afternoon, Allison finished work early for once and headed to the shopping mall. It was precious rest time between projects. While looking at spring clothes, she was finally able to relax her shoulders. Lately, she'd been so caught up with work that she had almost no time for herself. In the women's clothing section, as she picked up a blouse, someone called out to her. "Allison, it's been a while." When she turned around, there stood a woman she recognized. Jennifer Thompson. The mother of Hannah's friend Emily. Jennifer was a woman who always had a warm smile. They'd met a few times at school events, and Allison had the impression she was easy to talk to. "Jennifer, how have you been?" Allison greeted her with a smile. But looking more closely, Jennifer's expression had something different from her usual softness. She seemed a little tense, with a serious look on her face. "Hey, do you have a minute? How about some tea?" There was something more than just social courtesy in Jennifer's words. Allison nodded, and the two headed to a cafe in the mall. On a weekend afternoon, the cafe was bustling with families and couples. The two chose a quiet table in the back and sat down. Jennifer took a sip of coffee, then placed the cup on the table. Then she looked straight into Allison's eyes. That serious gaze gave Allison a premonition that she was about to be told something not good. "Actually, I need to talk to you about Hannah." At Jennifer's words, Allison's heart skipped a beat. Had something happened to her daughter? An accident? An injury? Or had she caused problems at school? No, Hannah wasn't that kind of child. "Hannah. Did something happen?" Allison leaned forward. Jennifer paused as if choosing her words carefully, then continued quietly. "Lately, Hannah seems to be coming to our house." Allison tilted her head. Hannah was going to Jennifer's house. Did that mean she was playing with Emily? If so, that shouldn't be a problem. Rather, wasn't the fact that she could play at a friend's house proof that her daughter was becoming sociable? "I didn't know that. It's nice that she's getting along with Emily." "Thank you." But Jennifer shook her head. Her expression became even more serious. "No, Allison. Hannah isn't coming after school. She's coming during the day on weekdays." For a moment, Allison couldn't understand the meaning of the words. During the day on weekdays. That meant during school hours, didn't it? What? But she should be at school. Allison's voice went up. It wasn't loud enough to make other customers turn around, but her agitation was clearly audible in her voice. Jennifer nodded quietly. "That's right. I didn't notice at first, but starting about a week ago, our doorbell has been ringing. In the morning. When I open it, Hannah is standing there. With her backpack on." Allison was confused. Her 8-year-old daughter wasn't going to school but was visiting a friend's house. Could such a thing be possible? Hannah left the house every morning with a smile, saying she was going to school. But Hannah should be going to school properly every morning. She said she was meeting up with friends. That's what I thought at first too. So I thought she was stopping by on her way to school and told her to go to school right away. But she came the next day. And the day after that. At Jennifer's words, Allison felt like she couldn't breathe. Her own daughter was skipping school every day. No, there was more to it than that. There must be some more serious reason. For an 8-year-old child to make the choice not to go to school alone. "So, what did you do? Did Hannah say anything?" "Well," Jennifer lowered her voice. "I can't tell you the details, but something's off about her." Allison's hands trembled. Something's off. The weight of those words pierced her chest. What was happening to her own daughter? Why hadn't she noticed? They saw each other every day, yet Allison hadn't noticed anything wrong with her daughter at all. "What do you mean? Is Hannah okay? Is she hurt?" "She's not hurt." But, Jennifer took a breath. "Allison, tomorrow during the day, why don't we stake out your house together?" "Stake out?" That word rang strangely clear through the cafe's bustle. Stake out her own 8-year-old daughter. She'd never even thought of such a thing. Allison was confused. She still didn't understand what was happening. Stake out my own daughter. For Hannah's sake. Please. Jennifer's eyes showed seriousness and at the same time deep sympathy. This woman knew something. She knew what was happening to her daughter. But why wouldn't she tell her directly? Various questions swirled in Allison's mind. Leaving the cafe and walking to the parking lot, Allison kept thinking. Work crossed her mind. Tomorrow she had an important client meeting. But this was about her daughter. There were things more important than work. That's what she told herself. Okay. Allison turned around and answered Jennifer. I'll take off work tomorrow. Thank you, Allison. Tomorrow morning at 9 at your house. The two parted. Even after getting in her car, Allison couldn't move for a while. Her hands gripping the steering wheel were shaking. What had happened to 8-year-old Hannah? Had something happened at school? Had she fought with friends? Or was it a more serious problem? That night, Allison sent an email to her boss. She wrote that she needed to take the next day off for a family matter. It was a crucial phase of the project, but that wasn't important now. This was about her daughter. Her 8-year-old daughter was running away from something every day. That fact squeezed Allison's heart. Even after getting into bed, Allison couldn't sleep. She thought about Hannah sleeping in the next room. What kind of suffering lay behind that smile? Hadn't those words, "It's okay, Mom," actually been a cry for help? The next morning, Allison woke Hannah as usual. She prepared breakfast as usual. Pretending to know nothing, she sent her daughter off with a smile. Have a good day, Hannah. Be careful. I'm going. Hannah went out the front door with her backpack on her small back. Allison watched her figure from the window. How much of a burden was on those small shoulders? She felt like crying. But now she had to endure. To know the truth. Looking at the clock, it was 8 in the morning. One more hour until Jennifer came. Allison took a deep breath. In a mix of anxiety and fear, Allison kept waiting. The doorbell rang. Allison rushed to open the door. Jennifer was standing there. Not with her usual warm smile, but with a serious expression. Are you ready? Jennifer's voice was low and quiet. Allison nodded. She wasn't really ready. She'd never imagined staking out her own daughter. But now wasn't the time to be saying such things. Yes. But is this right? Will Hannah really come back? Trust me. This is for Hannah. The two went through the living room and headed to the bedroom. Allison opened the closet door. It was a wide walk-in closet with the couple's clothes hanging on hangers inside. The two went to the back of it and left the door slightly open. Through the gap, they could see the bedroom and the hallway beyond. And they should be able to hear sounds coming down the stairs. Inside the closet was dark and cramped. There was enough space for the two women, but it was uncomfortable for staying long. Allison leaned against the wall and held her breath. She could hear Jennifer's breathing next to her. Looking at the clock, it was 9 in the morning. Silence enveloped the house. Normally at this time, she should have been in the office preparing for meetings. Checking presentation materials for clients, giving instructions to team members. Yet now, Allison was in her home closet, staking out her 8-year-old daughter. This situation was so surreal that Allison felt like she was dreaming. Will Hannah really come back? What about school? Allison asked Jennifer in a whisper. She still couldn't believe it. That her own daughter would skip school and come back home. Hannah was a good girl. Always smiling, listening to what her parents said. Not the kind of child who caused problems. Yes, yesterday and the day before, she came to my house at this time. There was certainty in Jennifer's voice. She had seen it. Hannah running away every day without going to school. Allison's heart ached. Why hadn't her daughter come to her? Why had she gone to her friend's mother instead of to her own mother? Time passed. 9:30. 10 o'clock. Nothing had happened yet. Inside the closet, Allison's feet were starting to go numb. Maybe she wouldn't come today. Maybe Jennifer was mistaken. Such thoughts crossed her mind. Maybe she's at school today. Allison whispered hopefully. She wanted that to be true. She wanted her daughter to be normally attending classes at school, laughing and playing with friends. She wanted this stakeout to be for nothing. But Jennifer shook her head. Her expression showed sadness. Wait. Just a little longer. Around 10:30, Allison's body had stiffened. From staying in the same position for so long, her back was starting to hurt. But more than that, her heart hurt. What was happening to her daughter? She was afraid to know the answer. And then, a little after 11 in the morning, the sound of the front door opening. Allison gasped. Her heart began to beat wildly. Jennifer lightly gripped Allison's arm, as if signaling, quietly. Little footsteps could be heard. The sound from the entrance toward the living room. Allison peeked through the gap in the closet. She could see the end of the hallway, the bottom of the stairs. There, a small figure appeared. It was Hannah. Her 8-year-old daughter had entered the house alone, still wearing her backpack. During school hours. Wearing her uniform, carrying her backpack. But not at school, at home. Allison almost cried out. But Jennifer squeezed her hand to stop her. Not yet, she said in a whisper. Hannah slowly walked into the living room. Her back looked much smaller and more fragile than when she'd been seen off that morning. The heavy backpack dug into the 8-year-old's small body. Seeing that figure, Allison's chest tightened. Hannah, entering the living room, placed her backpack next to the sofa. Then she sat down on the sofa. The movement looked very tired. It was as if the fatigue of an adult finishing a long day was seeping out of the 8-year-old daughter's small body. And then, Hannah covered her face with both hands. In that moment, Allison understood what her daughter was about to do. Hannah's small shoulders began to shake. Stifling her voice, her daughter was crying. An 8-year-old child, alone, thinking no one could see her, crying quietly. That sight was so painful to watch. Allison wanted to rush out. She wanted to go to her daughter right now and hold her. She wanted to ask why she was crying. She wanted her to tell her everything that had happened. But Jennifer's hand was stopping Allison. Not yet. Jennifer's small voice echoed in the closet. Allison held back her tears. Her own daughter was suffering, and she could do nothing. Just hiding and watching. This helplessness tore at Allison's heart. Hannah continued crying for several minutes. Without making a sound, just shaking her shoulders. So that no one would hear, so that no one would see, crying alone. Could there be a reason in this world why an 8-year-old child should have to cry in such loneliness? Eventually, Hannah stopped crying. She lifted her face and wiped away her tears with her hands. Then she slowly stood up and picked up her backpack. She began walking toward the stairs. Probably going to her room. Tears ran down Allison's cheeks. It wasn't just her daughter who was crying while stifling her voice. The mother, too, was crying in the same way inside the closet, stifling her voice. The sound of Hannah going upstairs could be heard. Then the sound of a door closing. Silence returned. Jennifer finally released Allison's hand. Allison came out of the closet. Her feet were numb and she couldn't walk well. But more than that, her heart hurt. Physical pain was nothing. Entering the living room, traces of her daughter's tears remained on the sofa. No, even if they weren't visible, surely her daughter had been crying here every day. Alone. Unable to tell anyone. Because her mother was busy with work. Because she didn't want to worry her. My 8-year-old daughter has been suffering like this. Allison felt like her knees would give out. Jennifer supported her. The two stood there without saying anything for a while. From upstairs, faint sounds could be heard. Hannah was probably doing something in her room. Allison made a decision. She would go to her daughter right now and hear everything. It was no longer time to hide. As a mother, she had to protect her daughter. Whatever truth awaited, she had to accept it. Allison began climbing the stairs. Step by step, her feet felt heavy. Her heart was beating hard. Standing in front of her daughter's room door, she couldn't move for a while. Beyond this door was the truth. The suffering her daughter was carrying was there. She knocked. Quietly, but firmly. Hannah. Allison's voice was shaking. From inside the room came a flustered presence. A sound like hiding something. Then little footsteps approaching the door. The door opened. Hannah stood there. Her eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious at a glance that she'd just been crying. Her daughter's face paled when she saw her mother. "Mom. Why?" Hannah's voice was small and trembling. Like a child caught doing something wrong, she had a frightened expression. Allison knelt down in front of her daughter. To meet her eyes. To talk at the same height as her 8-year-old daughter. What about school? At that question, Hannah fell silent. She bit her lip and looked down. She couldn't answer. No, she didn't want to answer. That silence told everything. Allison took her daughter's hand. It was small and cold. "Let's go downstairs. Tell me what's going on." The two went down the stairs. In the living room, Jennifer was waiting. Hannah looked at Jennifer with a slightly surprised expression. But she seemed to understand right away. Emily's mother had told her own mom everything. The three sat on the sofa. Hannah sat in the middle with the two mothers on either side. For a while, no one said anything. Only the sound of the clock second-hand echoed in the quiet living room. Jennifer was the first to speak. "Allison, Hannah has been coming to our house lately and crying all day." Allison looked at Jennifer. Then she looked at her daughter. Hannah kept looking down, saying nothing. "Why didn't you tell me, Hannah?" Allison's voice was gentle, but beneath it was deep sadness. Her daughter shook her head. She still couldn't say anything. Didn't want to. But she couldn't hide it anymore. That conflict made the 8-year-old's small body tremble. "Hannah," Jennifer called out gently. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Tell your mom." Those words broke something open. Tears overflowed from Hannah's eyes again. Her small body began to shake. Then, like a dam bursting, words poured out. "Mom, I'm sorry," Hannah said through tears. Allison pulled her daughter close. Her small body was shaking violently. "I'm being bullied at school." The moment she heard those words, Allison's world stopped. Bullying. Her 8-year-old daughter was being bullied. That fact pierced Allison's heart. Why didn't you tell me?" Allison held her daughter tightly. Hannah continued crying in her mother's arms. "Mom, you always seemed so busy." Hannah's words cut through Allison's heart. "I didn't want to worry you. Mom, you're always so tired." An 8-year-old child had been considering her mother's feelings and hiding her own suffering. She'd been leaving the house with a smile every morning so as not to worry her mother. When she'd said, "It's okay, Mom," it really wasn't okay at all. But she'd endured because she didn't want to burden her busy mother. I'm sorry. Allison apologized over and over. She couldn't stop the tears. What had she been doing? Absorbed in work, she hadn't noticed her daughter's suffering. They'd seen each other every day, yet she'd missed her daughter's SOS. Jennifer also had tears in her eyes. She quietly rubbed Hannah's back. "Hannah, what happened? Tell us in detail." Allison wiped her tears and looked at her daughter's face. Hannah slowly began to talk. "The girls in my class are saying mean things about me." The words coming from her 8-year-old daughter's mouth were so heavy. At first, it was just one person. But gradually other kids joined in. Hannah continued in a trembling voice. "When I go to school, everyone ignores me. Nobody will talk to me. During recess, I'm all alone." Allison gritted her teeth. Her 8-year-old child had been spending every day in such an environment. And when she came home, she couldn't tell her busy mother. "Did you tell your teacher?" "I did," Hannah nodded. But the teacher just said, "Be nice to each other," and nothing changed. The school hadn't protected her daughter either. At that fact, Allison felt anger. But more than that, she felt anger at herself. As her mother, she should have been the first to notice. "So I couldn't go to school anymore." Hannah nodded slightly. "In the morning when I leave the house, I intend to go to school. But when I get in front of the school, my feet won't move." Her 8-year-old daughter had been going through that struggle every morning. She knew she had to go to school. But she couldn't. And with nowhere to go, her daughter had been going to Emily's mother. "Only Emily's mom was nice to me." Hannah looked at Jennifer. Jennifer smiled gently. "The first time I went, I thought I'd be scolded. But Aunt Jennifer made me tea and listened to me." "Of course," Jennifer said. "You're not alone." Allison looked at Jennifer with gratitude. Without this woman, Allison might never have realized her daughter's suffering. And things might have become even more irreparable. "Hannah," Allison cupped her daughter's face with both hands. "I'm sorry. I didn't notice at all." "It's not your fault, Mom." Her 8-year-old daughter was comforting her mother. That kindness pained Allison's heart even more. Why should such a kind child have to be bullied? "From now on, I'll protect you properly." Allison held her daughter tightly. She vowed in her heart that she would never let her daughter suffer alone again. "I don't have to go to school?" Hannah asked anxiously. Allison shook her head. "I won't make you go the way things are. Tomorrow I'm going to the school and telling them everything." Hannah's expression brightened just a little. For the first time, someone would protect her. That's probably what she felt. The 8-year-old daughter began crying again in her mother's arms. But this time was different. They weren't tears of suffering, but tears of relief. The three stayed like that in the living room for a while. Jennifer quietly watched over the two. As Allison held her daughter, she continued to blame herself. Absorbed in work, she'd lost sight of what was most important. She hadn't been able to notice her daughter's SOS. But it wasn't too late. From now on, she would change everything. To protect her daughter, as a mother, she would do what she truly should do. Hannah's crying gradually quieted. In Allison's arms, her daughter breathed softly as if relieved. She'd finally been able to put down the burden she'd been carrying alone for so long. The next day, Allison went to the school. When she entered the principal's office, the principal and homeroom teacher were waiting. Allison spoke in a calm tone, but with strong will. "My 8-year-old daughter is being bullied. Let me explain the situation in detail." The principal listened with a serious expression. The homeroom teacher had a somewhat perplexed look. Allison told them everything she'd heard from Hannah. The mean words, the ignoring, the isolation. And how nothing had changed even when she'd consulted the teacher. "We'll investigate," the principal said. "We'll speak to those involved immediately." However, the school's response after that was slow. Even after 1 week, 2 weeks, no concrete improvement measures were presented. The female students who had been bullying received suspension, but their parents claimed, "My child didn't do anything wrong, and Hannah is making a big deal out of nothing." Allison felt angry. She couldn't leave her daughter at a school that couldn't protect an 8-year-old child. "I'm transferring her." Allison consulted with Tom and made the decision. Her husband also promised to adjust his work schedule and make time for the family. They looked for a new school and went to interviews. And Hannah's transfer to an elementary school in the neighboring town was decided. 3 months later, on an afternoon with warm spring sunlight, Allison finished work early and went home. She continued her job as project manager, but changed the way she worked. She reduced overtime and prioritized time with her daughter. When she opened the front door, she heard Hannah's bright voice. "Mom, welcome home." Hannah ran over with a smile. That smile was completely different from 3 months ago. It was a real, heartfelt smile. "Today school was fun. I drew pictures with my new friend." Allison held her daughter. She felt like tears would overflow. "That's wonderful. I'm so glad." At the new school, Hannah gradually changed. At first she seemed anxious, but blessed with kind teachers and new friends, her smile came back. She no longer hated going to school in the morning. Every day she began talking happily about school. Her 8-year-old daughter had finally regained the days befitting an 8-year-old. One weekend, Allison met Jennifer at a cafe. Since that day, the bond between the two had deepened. "Jennifer, thank you so much," Allison said with heartfelt gratitude. "If you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have noticed. I'm a mother too." "Of course." Jennifer smiled warmly. "You protected my 8-year-old daughter. Not just Hannah. You saved me too." The two embraced. They had no blood relation. But this woman was family, Allison thought. Real family wasn't just about blood ties. Noticing each other's SOS, reaching out a hand, supporting each other together, that was family. That's what Allison had learned. That night, before getting into bed, Hannah said, "Mom, today the teacher said, if you have any problems, tell me right away." "That's nice. She's a good teacher." "Yeah. But I'm okay now. Because you always listen to me, Mom." Allison stroked her daughter's head. 8-year-old Hannah fell asleep with a relieved expression. Outside the window, the spring night breeze blew gently. Just as the long winter had ended and the warm season had finally arrived, a new spring had come to this family too. As Allison gazed at her daughter's sleeping face, she vowed in her heart. She would never lose sight of what was precious again. Work was important, but there were things more important than that. Protecting her 8-year-old daughter's smile, that was her mission as a mother.